All right. Well, hi, hello, and welcome to AI versus AI using DNS to combat AI-driven attacks. Today's webinar is sponsored by DNS Filter and produced by Actual Tech Media, a future B2B company. My name is Jess Steinbuck. I'm with Actual Tech Media, and I'm so happy that I get to be your moderator for this interesting conversation. I am instantly picturing, do you guys remember that old Mad TV bit of Spy versus Spy, and you had the little cartoon spies facing off against one another? And doesn't it kind of feel that way these days? Because AI is this incredible tool. It's all these opportunities. It's opening all these exciting doors that are then just as accessible on both sides of the fence. So here we are at maybe a standoff or a stalemate, but maybe there are ways that we can pull ahead, right? Stay in front of the threats that are using these same tools. We can use AI to close those doors on threat actors and their own AI tools. I tell you, if that starts to feel like it's spinning you around in circles again, here's the good news. We have an expert here with us today who is going to help guide us through, help us sort through that critical role of AI-powered protective DNS and how that can defend against modern cyber attacks. Really, really importantly, digging into what you need to know to actually protect your organization. All of that great insight coming at us very quickly here, but first I'm going to zip through a few important housekeeping points to help you get the most out of your time here with us today. So what I want to start with the questions section of your webinar console, because the absolute best part of a conversation like this one, especially when we're talking about these sorts of innovative tools and things that are evolving as we understand them, it's really, really important to get those questions in. You want to interact with our incredible expert presenter, and we are going to save time for some Q&A at the end of our presentation today. So get those questions in and we'll dig in and explore together once we get through our presentation. I want you to give that questions tab a little bit of a test run right now. If you haven't already done so, tell us how you're doing. I see some chilly folks. I see a few of you who are chiming in from cold areas and staying cozy inside, learning cool things today. And I love that. Hey to you, Vrej. Hey, John. Hey, Ben. Hey, Zhang, Morteza, and Ed. We've got Gilbert. We've got a whole awesome crew here with us. Keep those highs and hellos coming in. We want to hear from you as we go through our day here today, and we especially want those questions. I will remind you, I hope this doesn't come up, but every once in a while, we all know the tech gremlins get in the system. So if that happens, here's your first step. Try a browser refresh. I promise a browser refresh is going to clear out most of those usual gremlins. But if they get in the system and the browser refresh hasn't helped, you know where to find us. You post right there in the questions window, and our team will be there to help you out. All right, so we talked about questions, we talked about handouts. Let's go one step down that little line on the card in front of you, and I am sure you're all excited about it because you can see that we have a prize giveaway. So today we are giving away a $250 Amazon gift card as a prize drawing at the end of our webinar. Now, you do need to be here in live attendance in order to qualify to win that prize, and all winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. If you do not have those memorized, that's fine, neither do I. They are listed for you in the handouts section, so you can click on into that handouts tab, scroll down, and you'll find the full T's and C's in there. While you're exploring in that handout section, please do make sure that you click on the link in there, open that up. Don't go away yet. Don't start reading yet because we have a lot to cover with you, but I promise you that link is going to be very helpful in follow-up. It's going to give you a great way to learn a little bit more as soon as we wrap up with our presenter here. So make sure you spend some time in that handouts tab. All right. Well, speaking of prizes, we've got one more fun prize for you, and I'm hoping that all of you are locked and loaded and ready to ask all of those wonderful questions without any extra incentive other than my immediate appreciation and high fives, which, you know, is a prize in and of itself there too. But we also have a $50 Amazon gift card for all of you. So available to one of you. Yeah. Now that I've said that, we have a $50 Amazon gift card that we're going to be giving out to the best question asked. So all of you have the opportunity to enter just by asking a question. We're going to review all the questions asked once we wrap up our webinar, and then we will choose that best question and we will send you your $50 Amazon gift card. So make sure you get those questions in because, as I said, high five from me and also the possibility of winning that great prize. So you choose which one's more motivating to you. Hopefully both equally, I assume. Yeah. That's what I figured. All right. Well, speaking of motivating, let's get into our presentation because we have an incredible expert waiting in the wings and we've got a lot to cover today. So today we will be chatting with our wonderful expert presenter, Mikey Pruitt, partner evangelist at DNS Filter. Mikey, I know you've got a lot to cover. I know we want to save some questions for Q&A at the end. So I'm going to step back. I'm going to hand things on over to you. Take it away.
Welcome, everyone. Today, we'll be covering AI versus AI, using DNS to combat AI-driven attacks. My name is Mikey Pruitt, and I am the Global Partner Evangelist here at DNS Filter. We're going to dive into the critical role that DNS plays in cybersecurity and how DNS filtering can be a powerful, proactive tool in protecting your organizations from emerging AI-powered threats. A bit about myself. I was an early hire here at DNS Filter. I've been working in tech since the .com bust, so I've seen a few things. I started at DNS Filter as an engineer. I was the first product manager, and now I work in marketing. My job is to work closely with partners to optimize DNS security within their existing tech stacks, and I'm also the resident AI expert. I get to talk about cool tech and proactive security for a living, and today is no different. Here's what we'll be covering. First, we'll talk a bit about how AI is transforming the landscape of cyber threats, and I'll explain a bit about how and why this is happening. Next, we'll go over the key threats that are being powered by AI. Then I'll go over exactly what it looks like for an AI-powered attack to develop and just how easy it is for these campaigns to take off at scale. Finally, we'll go over where DNS fits into all of this, and specifically how AI-powered protective DNS solutions are the best defense against malicious AI. So let's jump in. AI's role in cybercrime is expanding. It's creating new, more dangerous challenges. One example of this would be deepfakes. I'm sure you've all seen those. AI can now generate highly convincing video and audio content, making it easier than ever to deceive people. These AI-powered forgeries can be used to spread misinformation, manipulate financial markets, or even impersonate trusted figures to gain access to sensitive information. AI is also powering the next generation of sophisticated phishing attacks and malware. The new age of phishing attacks are tricking even the most cautious individuals, like us, into giving up personal credentials, bank details, or corporate secrets. Additionally, automated malware generation allows cybercriminals to create and deploy highly adaptive, self-evolving attacks at scale. These AI-driven threats are faster, harder to detect, and can adapt to bypass traditional security defenses. In a one-year period, malicious AI traffic accounted for 14% of all cyber threats on the DNS Filter network, which is 36% higher than traditional malware. A common pattern that many cybersecurity professionals are finding is that AI just hits different. For cybercriminals, AI is more than just a tool, it's a shortcut making attacks faster, easier, and more devastating. Where traditional attacks were manual, time-consuming, and required technical expertise, AI-driven attacks have a much lower barrier to entry. Now, even small-time hackers can leverage powerful tools to deploy highly sophisticated threats, making the cost of entry almost non-existent. In addition, AI is repeatable, it's scalable, and it evolves. AI can analyze massive amounts of data using behavior and personal information to create hyper-targeted, highly personalized attacks. Spear phishing campaigns that would have taken days or even weeks to manually craft can now be deployed in minutes, across thousands of potential victims. No human limits on creativity or time. AI does it all. It doesn't stop there. AI-driven attacks don't just reach their targets, they learn from them. Over time, malware powered by machine learning adapts. It watches how systems respond, then evolves to avoid detection and refine its methods. The more it's deployed, the better it becomes at bypassing defenses. This makes attacks smarter, more persistent, more dangerous. And attackers can automate the entire refinement process, meaning they're always one step ahead. The future of cybercrime isn't just about breaking into systems, it's about learning from them, adapting, evolving, and outsmarting the defenses meant to stop them. As AI evolves, so will the threats. So why does this matter now? The Harvard Business Review recently found that the introduction of large language models has lowered the cost of phishing attacks by a staggering 95%. And on top of that, fully automated phishing campaigns powered by AI are now just as effective as those created by humans. With LLMs at their disposal, attackers can quickly generate thousands of highly convincing emails, each one tailored to its target with precision. On the DNS filter network, 1 in every 174 requests is now malicious. That's a 5-fold increase year over year. So what does this mean for you? The average person encounters up to 29 threats each day. That's more than one threat encounter every hour if you're online 24 hours a day. Not everyone is as chronically online as I am, so chances are you're experiencing multiple threats per hour that you're making DNS queries. It's no longer a matter of if you'll encounter a phishing attempt, it's a matter of when. And these attacks aren't just more frequent, they're more dangerous. The cost of data breaches has hit an all-time high, now averaging nearly $4.88 million per breach. This is according to IBM. So that's a steep 10% increase year over year, and it's only going up. The financial and reputational damage from a breach can cripple businesses, small and large. And with AI making these attacks easier, faster, more scalable, the threat is only going to grow. This isn't a future problem. This is happening right now. Automated AI-driven phishing campaigns are already outpacing our defenses, while malicious traffic floods networks every minute of every day. And unless we adapt, the consequences will be severe. See, cybercrime is evolving. AI has lowered the barriers, increased the speed, and amplified the scale. The time to act is now, because the cost of inaction is higher than it's ever been. Now, to get into the meat of the actual AI-powered threats we're seeing, I'm going to go over advanced phishing campaigns, malware, and DGA, which stands for domain generation algorithms, typo squatting, and social engineering. So phishing has always been a threat, but today it's no longer a simple trick to steal passwords. It's a sophisticated, evolving danger that's harder to detect and harder to defend against. In a 1-year period, phishing attacks on the DNS filter network have surged 203%. What used to be a widespread nuisance has now become a high-stakes, highly targeted operation. Cybercriminals are no longer sending out random, generic emails hoping for a lucky hit. Now they're using artificial intelligence to personalize and scale their attacks quickly and efficiently. AI can scan social media, online databases, and other public sources of info to build detailed profiles of targets. These profiles allow attackers to craft highly personalized emails, ones that are tailored to the recipient, making them much harder to spot. So the result, a message that's not just generic, it's relevant, it's personal, and often indistinguishable from the real thing. These AI-powered spear phishing emails target specific individuals, knowing exactly how to get them to act. What was once a manual, time-consuming process is now automated, enabling attackers to scale their operations and target thousands of individuals. As I said before, the average person is encountering up to 29 threats per day, and there's a good chance you've been the intended victim of some of these attacks, potentially without even noticing. But phishing isn't just about emails. There's smishing, vishing, whaling, angler phishing, all these crazy acronyms. The method of delivery, it continues to evolve, whether it's through voice calls, text messages, or social media. AI is enabling deepfake technology to create highly convincing impersonations, video and audio that are almost impossible to distinguish from the real thing. This isn't just an increase in volume, it's an evolution in the way these attacks are carried out, making them far more effective and dangerous as attackers bypass traditional defenses to trick even the most vigilant users. Whether we like it or not, the next phishing attempt will be smarter, more personalized, and harder to spot than before. So one of the most powerful tools behind sophisticated malware attacks are domain generation algorithms, DGAs. On DNS Filters Network, 68% of all threats originate from new domains. These aren't domains you'd find in a typical web search. These are dynamic, constantly shifting, and generated on the fly, and they're helping malware avoid detection. DGAs create large numbers of random, unpredictable domain names, each one linked to malware's command and control servers. These domains are not static, they evolve, making it nearly impossible to track or block them in time. This flexibility is exactly what makes DGAs so dangerous. By generating multiple domains, malware can stay one step ahead of the security measures. It's a never-ending cat and mouse game. Traditional security solutions that rely exclusively on blocking known domains can't keep up with this rapid, unpredictable change. Typo squatting, the practice of registering domains that are close to popular websites, has been around for years. But today it's becoming more sophisticated, easier to scale, and harder to detect. Cybercriminals are now using artificial intelligence to analyze domain patterns and user behavior. With this data, they can predict the most common typos and automate generic, deceptive, lookalike domains that mimic legitimate websites. AI helps generate massive lists of typo domains designed to lure in unsuspecting victims. What used to require manual effort is now automated and scaled, making it easy for malicious actors to flood the internet with near-perfect replicas of real websites. These misspelled domains are becoming more believable, closely mimicking their legitimate counterparts with small but crucial changes. And now the tactics have evolved further. Cybercriminals are now appending subdomains with familiar trusted phrases like support or reservation. These subdomains make the websites look even more authentic, tricking users into thinking they're interacting with the real company. In a recent twist uncovered by Akamai, scammers targeted the hospitality industry. They created fake hotel booking pages with misspelled domains, luring victims into entering their credit card information under the guise of booking a stay. The criminals proceeded to steal the victim's credit card data, completing the scam and pocketing the funds, making it nearly impossible for the victim to trace back to the original attack. Typo squatting used to be a simple trick, substituting letters to create a fake site, but the more sophisticated and believable these domains become, the more successful the attacks are. Social engineering has always relied on one key element, trust. But today, trust is being manipulated by something far more powerful, AI. AI chatbots have evolved. They can now imitate human conversation so convincingly that many can't tell the difference. These bots aren't just answering simple questions, they're extracting sensitive information. By using advanced natural language processing, AI can carry on detailed, intelligent conversations. It knows how to build trust and gradually guide individuals into revealing information that would otherwise be protected. That's not all. AI can also create fake personas on social media platforms like LinkedIn or Facebook. These personas don't just exist, they interact. They engage with users, build connections, and gain trust over time. AI can analyze a target's emotional state during these interactions, whether through email, phone, or video, and tailor the attack accordingly. If an attacker has access to a victim's facial expressions, voice tone, or behavior, AI can help in manipulating the victim more effectively by exploiting their emotional responses. And these AI-driven personas interact with their targets. They build rapport, appearing as professional contacts or friendly acquaintances. Once that trust is established, the AI can begin to extract confidential information like passwords, project details, or financial information. The info doesn't come all at once. It's a gradual process over days or weeks. The AI chatbot builds a relationship, and then, only when the time is right, it asks for just the right piece of data to complete the attack. AI also plays a critical role in data mining and reconnaissance. It scans social media, company websites, and even public records to build detailed profiles of potential targets. AI doesn't just collect data, it analyzes it. It identifies patterns in an individual's role, communication style, and potential security gaps. This allows attackers to tailor their approach, suggesting specific attack vectors that are most likely to succeed based on their target's behavior and weaknesses. This level of precision makes AI-driven social engineering not just a threat, it's a sophisticated weapon that can be used to bypass traditional security measures, tricking employees or users into handing over sensitive data. So what does an AI-powered attack look like? It's not quite as obvious as the image on the screen would suggest, but I'll walk through the steps that actors are taking so you can see just how simple it is to get a campaign up and running at scale and why it's so important to protect your users from these types of threats. Bad actors can start this process with tools accessible on the dark web, like Evil Proxy, that automate the data scraping process on every social media and open source intelligence in order to effectively craft convincing phishing emails. They can then use tools like ChatGPT or dark LLMs specifically designed for threat actors to draft a personalized email with or without typos and proper grammar. This process can take as little as 5 minutes compared to a previous average of 16 hours. In addition to saving time, the use of AI also knocks out a few of the individual's most obvious tells in a traditional phishing campaign and helps to catch the recipient off guard. Next, the scammer would execute the attack utilizing their extensive list of generated domains and activate the malware in C2 servers. Once the attack has been deemed successful, they would use their dark LLM and Gen AI to evaluate the performance of the campaign and determine how to improve the next go round. Now that we've covered the scary parts, it's time to go over one of the only real defenses against AI-based threats: AI. Specifically, AI-powered protective DNS. First, I'll give an overview on what protective DNS is. Then we'll talk about how machine learning powers the most effective threat detection and prevention. We'll take a bit of a deeper dive into how exactly DNS filtering works. And finally, I'll go over how DNS protection fits into the modern security stack. So I'm sure you all know what DNS is, but let's just start with a basic review. So think of DNS like the Maps app on your phone. When you type in a destination, like the name of your favorite taco place, the app doesn't know where Fave Taco is right away. It first translates the name into an exact address and then gives you step-by-step directions how to get there. DNS works the same way. When you type in a website like dnsfilter.com, DNS translates into the site's actual IP address, which is kind of like its street address on the internet. So just like your Maps app gets you to Taco Tuesday, DNS gets you to the website you're after, fast and easy. No U-turns or detours, well, unless something malicious is trying to mess with your route, but we'll get into that part. DNS maps easily understandable domain names like dnsfilter.com to IP addresses. Very simple. Every time you type a URL or click a link, DNS is working in the background to connect you to the right place. Now let's walk through a typical DNS query. When you enter a domain, the query travels through various DNS servers to find the IP address. It starts at the DNS resolver, goes to the root server, then the top level domain servers, and finally the authoritative server. Each of these steps is crucial in routing the traffic accurately. Protective DNS, or PDNS, is a powerful line of defense against any of the AI threats we discussed earlier. PDNS works by scanning every DNS query, every request made to access a website or service before it reaches the user. It checks these queries in real time, identifying and blocking malicious sites at the DNS level. Part of what makes this so effective in threat protection is the use of AI and machine learning to analyze and detect suspicious patterns and behaviors of websites and queries in order to find and stop new threats faster. Whether it's phishing links, ransomware sites, or malware, PDNS stops these threats in their tracks. By filtering malicious content right at the source, protective DNS prevents harmful websites from even loading, protecting users and devices from a wide range of cyber threats. However, protective DNS isn't just about blocking threats, it's also highly adaptable to each organization's needs. There's also content filtering. This allows organizations to block specific categories of websites such as gambling, streaming, or social media. We can block things like illegal download sites, and there's also a real nasty hate category to categorize sites where criminal organizations would upload grotesque videos that have no place on the internet, much less your organization's public Wi-Fi. DNS filter always blocks child exploitation domains that many of our hospitality and retail customers appreciate. We have 39 of these content categories so that you can create a customized browsing policy that aligns with your company goals and security requirements. Now let's go over how protective DNS works. Just like any other DNS query, when you type a website address into your browser, your device needs to know the corresponding IP address. We already know it does this by sending a DNS request to the DNS server, but in this case, the protective DNS is the server. The PDNS server checks the domain, such as example.com, against a block list of known threats, domains linked to malware, phishing, or other harmful activities. Let's say example.com happens to be known malware. So the protective DNS server doesn't send back an IP address. Instead, it redirects the user to a block page. It's like, no. Meanwhile, this event is logged in the system, and if necessary, an alert is sent to your security administrators, keeping them informed of potential threats. It's a proactive approach to security that keeps threats at bay before they reach individual devices, instead of relying solely on endpoint protection to catch issues after the fact. PDNS filters and blocks these threats at the network level. This way, it stops attacks at the earliest possible stage, adding a critical layer of protection that enhances the overall security stack. Artificial intelligence and machine learning powered threat detection and prevention are revolutionizing the cybersecurity landscape. According to Ponemon Institute, 70% of cybersecurity professionals acknowledge that AI is highly effective in identifying threats that were once undetectable. Leveraging machine learning, protective DNS can proactively scan vast numbers of websites. DNS filter can do up to 1 million per day, analyzing page content and behavior patterns to categorize and identify suspicious activity. By defining anomalies before they evolve into recognized threats, AI is making it possible to prevent attacks in real time, ensuring that potential risks are neutralized before they can harm systems. The only real way to beat out the AI-powered threats we've been talking about today is by leveraging AI and moving from reactivity to proactivity. By identifying patterns in query behavior and detecting domain generation algorithm-driven activities, as well as flagging unusual or harmful content within web pages. Protective DNS is beating these AI threats at their own game. These proactive scans spot threats early on and stop them in their tracks by redirecting users who click on malicious links to the block page. This immediate redirection stops the attack attempt before it reaches its target, preventing any damage and further minimizing the chances of a successful breach. This combination of AI-driven scanning, behavior analysis, and DNS protection is rapidly transforming how organizations protect against a growing tide of cyber threats. Now let's take a quick look at DNS filter in action. So here I am at the DNS filter dashboard. I'm on the overview page. This is like a snapshot of your deployment. You can see how many users you have, the devices deployed, some last 7 days of your traffic pattern. And this is obviously a demo account, so I have very limited traffic and limited number of deployments. You get a snapshot of domains that have been requested, and then a quick shortcut link to sites that you have deployed. But before we get to sites, let's look at the rules, the policies. This is the first pillar of the DNS filter platform, crafting your security policy. I have a few listed here. I'm going to jump into this one I've named strict and show you the categories that I have blocked. These are the 39 content categories here, and what you see highlighted in red is enabled for blocking. And this actually represents kind of the average that we see across all of our customer base. You can see that nasty terrorism and hate category right here. We can block adult content. We can even block generative AI tools, which is really nice. In addition to the content categories, we have our threat categories. This is kind of where the rubber meets the road in threat protection. These are our threat categories: botnet, crypto mining, phishing. We have some newly observed domains. Then we have new domains. These are ones that have been registered within the last 30 days. And we can also block very new domains down here. domains registered in the last 24 hours. So domains are typically used quickly in attacks, not always, but often. So we have various ways to block domains that were registered in the recent past, 24 hours or last 30 days. This newly observed domains means it's the first time we've seen it, first time DNS filter have seen it, and you can put a 30-day hold essentially on those domains. So in addition to our broad threat and content categories, you can block things by application. So each application that you're using is essentially a collection of domains. And you can see here I have a lot of VPNs and proxies blocked, and I can block things like TikTok, which is legal now, not legal now, I don't know. It's either active or not active. But we can block those because applications use a set of domains. I mean, you can get a little bit more granular here with our app aware section of the policy. And the most granular piece is our allow and our block list. Here you can block very specific domains. You can block whole TLDs. You can just block a subdomain. Or allow. And in certain cases, you may want to override settings from one of the broad categories and allow something like, your RMM tool, just to make sure it never gets blocked in any way. And the same is true for the block list. You can block the .zip TLD, which may be recommended for a while. Here I block the .ru TLD, and you can see that there. And then we have some advanced settings where you can block a few more things that are a bit more, not in beta, but, just kind of reserved here, just in case you want to get a little bit more fancy with your policy. So we have moderate and strict versions of blocking our advertisers and tracking categories, because if you've been on websites that say, please allow us to serve you ads so that you can read our content. A lot of news websites are notorious for this. So with our moderate category, more of those will get through. You can block park sites. Here's our domain generation algorithms. Right here, you can see DGA. That one is named to malicious domain protection. We can block sites that we don't know about. Depending on your security posture, you may want to do that. And of course, we always block child exploitation domains in connection with our partners, the IWF and Project Arachnid. So that's kind of the high level basics of crafting the rules. You can schedule those rules. So this is very typical we see at schools. So, in the school hours, you want to have your strict policy enforced. And outside of those hours, you may want something a little lighter. Maybe the students can now access Facebook or social media or whatever. And you can also customize the block page that people see with your company logo or a funny image, which is what we do here at DNS Filter. But that kind of wraps up policies. And now that we see the policies, how do you get the policies enabled on your devices? There's a few ways to do that. First off, we have the site level deployment. This is your network level. You would change the DNS forwarders to these down here that are on every page of the app here. This .37.37 and .36.36. Those are our DNS forwarders using our Anycast network, and you would just direct your queries to that. We'll need your WAN IP or a dynamic host name to kind of serve as a password. And this is my home WAN IP. Don't hack me, bro. If you guys know how to do that. But basically, this is protecting an entire site, an entire location. And they can also be used as a grouping mechanism if you need to. And what would you group? Roaming clients. So this is a lightweight agent that runs on your device. You can install these on Windows, Mac OS, and Chromebooks, and also on iOS and Android devices. And you can install this with the site secret key, and that's kind of the identifier for the roaming client. Similar to the WAN IP is the kind of identifier password for the network level. This site key is the password for the roaming client. You can use local domains with our roaming client. You just set those up here, and it takes effect across the entire site. So the site deployment, roaming client deployment, and we also have a way to run a roaming client of sorts for the entire network. We call this relay. Some of our competitors call this something different, but it's like a virtual machine you would run. You would direct queries there on your network, and you have a bit more control. And the reason you would want to deploy these different in these different ways is because each of them has strengths and weaknesses. So we'll get into that in the reporting section, which is kind of the last pillar, I would say, of DNS filter. So going back to our deployment methods, the site level deployment gives you kind of data back on anything that happened at that network location. So you can see how this would get kind of jumbled together. You can't really pinpoint what happened. You just know that something did and what it was, and like a time that it happened. But with our relay deployment, you would get back the local IP address of that device. So if you have like printers, IoT devices that have static IPs, you can identify that they were responsible for a specific DNS queries. And then with the roaming client, you can actually identify people. So here we have, this is again a demo installation with just me. So I can dig in here and get a report about Mikey Pruitt, what I've been up to for the last, today in this case, but we could go all the way back to last 30 days and up to last 90 days, depending on your subscription. So I could dig into a Mikey report for the last 30 days in my case to see what I've been up to. So one more thing about reporting is in the tools section, this query log. This is one of my favorite views of our platform. It's essentially a raw DNS query log of all of the queries happening in near real time. Seconds later, it'll show you what's happening. So these are all the queries that my device is making. If I had multiple people, I could use some filters to find that specific person, select a date and time range that I'm looking for something specific, select a specific domain. I can really slice and dice here and dig down to find a specific event. And the last thing I want to cover here is the integrations. So DNS filter data that you see here is very powerful, but it's even more powerful in conjunction with data from your other systems. Maybe Microsoft 365 login history, and all of the DNS filter data can be streamed into a SIM of your choosing. And you can also dump it to an S3 compatible bucket like an Amazon S3. And there's some others that you can dump the data to and either import it into a SIM or some other tool, maybe your SOC, or you can stream it directly into some of our connectors here. We also have a few PSA integrations. These are typically used by our MSP customers. We allow for single sign-on, and we also have an Active Directory integration, which is a really easy way to import the users and groups that you already have in Azure or Intra ID, they call it now, and Active Directory, and then assign policies to that group of people and use DNS filter in conjunction with the setup groups and users that you already have. So that kind of wraps up a quick tour of DNS filter, kind of in action. And the last thing I want to do is admit that there is no silver bullet in cybersecurity. So protective DNS might be the first line of defense, but that alone is not enough. And that's why DNS filter's ability to integrate seamlessly with existing security tools is really one of our biggest strengths. Whether you're using firewalls or endpoint protection or identity management, DNS filter is adding a critical layer without overlapping or creating any redundancies. So instead of adding complexity, DNS filter, we just fit right in. We enhance your security stack by blocking threats before they reach your other defenses. And you're strengthening your perimeter by implementing DNS filter. So your other tools, they don't really have to work as hard. So that wraps up my spiel. Thank you for listening about how AI powered protective DNS can protect your organization's network from AI based threats. You know, as I mentioned earlier, I really love talking about DNS, and I could just go on and on, but we do have a time limit. But I'd love to get the chance to answer some questions. But before I get to that, I wanted to share that we have a lot more resources available as part of like a wider security strategy and how to utilize DNS protective DNS on your networks. So the team at DNS Filter recently put together an ebook white paper on why DNS should be part of your security strategy. I think you'll be able to drop the link in there. Maybe one of our admins behind the scenes can do that and get a copy of this for yourself and just, read about it and see how DNS can fit into your current stack. And, thanks again for your time. I hope you were able to take something away from this, or at the very least, that you found the presentation interesting. And if you want to reach out to my team at DNS Filter, get a demo, take a closer look at something, just reach out to us at marketing@dnsfilter.com, or you can go to our website, which is also dnsfilter.com. Sounds like marketing wouldn't be like the people you want to reach, but we're very good at getting you to where you need to go. So that's all I have. So let's open it up for questions. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Mikey. We definitely have lots of questions coming in. We've got lots to explore. Thank you for such an interesting presentation. And I did drop the link in. So for everyone out there, you have two ways to get that link. One is by copying that right out of the chat. And the other one is by visiting the handouts tab, which you will all remember from my fascinating introduction. And if you click on the link there, you can access that ebook right there. That's a pretty good read, Mikey. I was giving it a read before our chat today. I think the folks out there are really going to enjoy that. Mikey, can you hear me okay? Did we lose you? Oh no. Mikey, are you with me? Hang on, Mikey, try a browser refresh. Can you all hear me? Can everyone out there hear me? Did we just lose Mikey? Sometimes when we change from video to chat.
Yeah. How's
There
that?
we go.
Yay, refresh.
See, it clears out all the tech gremlins. Oh, great. Okay. Well, thank you to Richard and Adam who wrote in and said, "We can hear you, Jess." For a second, Mikey, I was like, is it me? Am I the problem? I'm not going to sing. Okay, let's get into it, Mikey, now that we've got that up. Gilbert says, let's give it up for Mikey.
Hey, thank you, Gilbert. Appreciate it.
Okay, let's jump in. We've got a bunch of questions coming in. I want to get through as many as we can. I'm going to start, you know what? I'm sort of torn because there's so many that I really want to jump in with, but I'm going to actually start with this one here from Joseph. I think this is an interesting place to get into. What limitations would AI DNS models have in encrypted DNS and DNS over HTTPS scenarios? That was as many acronyms as we could possibly fit into that sentence.
Right. There's one more. No. Yeah, so that's actually a really great question. We talk a lot about, encryption. We can do encryption by default on the DNS filter side. And when people deploy DNS filter, we're getting access to the traffic anonymized in a way that we can use to assist in those predictive models. We encourage the use of TLS encryption and really kind of disable the use of DNS over HTTPS, DOH, because that is like a at the browser level of encryption. And which is great. Like if you have nothing else, you should definitely use DOH. But it's only at the browser level where your machine is really responsible for the bulk of DNS queries that are happening, like in your life as you go through your day. Your machines, your devices are making DNS queries in the background, which are not covered by DOH. And typically people will disable DOH with DNS filter installs. And we implement what's called TLS encryption. But yeah, happy to chat more about that, Joseph. Reach out if you want to.
Mikey, that was a fabulous answer, and B, extra acronyms. Well done.
Thanks.
I now would like to challenge the audience. I was thinking as you were going, I wonder what the longest sentence you could make with the most amount of acronyms, the fewest amount of words that would still make sense.
I think if you throw in like some LOLs and some kind of, colloquial like connector acronyms, you could do a whole acronym sentence.
Yes, I will allow for text and
Okay.
colloquial acronyms in this, but I want to see how far you can. If anyone out there wants to accept that challenge, please
No
send
chat
me your.
GPT.
Yeah,
That's cheap.
exactly. Get ChatGPT to do it. Your most acronym-filled sentence that still makes sense. I'm very curious. All right, well, uh, great answer. Let's get to this one here, because I think you were kind of teasing alongside this, and really curious to learn a little bit more about how DNS filters predictive analytics models actually train. This is a question from Paul, and specifically, Paul's wondering if you could kind of explore a little bit on how you're keeping current, because obviously this is a constantly evolving landscape.
Yeah, that's another great question. Thank you, Paul. So, AI is really all about the volume of data that you have to analyze. And we at DNS Filter have an absolute ton of data because we service about a little over 30 billion with a B DNS queries per day. We categorize about 1 million new sites per day, and that 30 billion DNS queries every day that we service are used in that training data. So our data, there is no shortage of data here at DNS Filter. And keep in mind, like, DNS Filter is a relatively small company in the grand scheme of things. We service about 1% of the world's internet traffic, which, 1% is the lowest number, right? But still, on the scale of, the internet, it is a ton. So we have a ton of data to use for our, model training. And that's what we do, anonymized, of course. Oh, and how does it keep current? So that is actually the beauty of DNS filter and that data. There was a time when I was early at DNS filter, we had a little party when we crossed 500 million DNS queries per day. And now we're over 30 billion. So we are growing tremendously. And every new domain that we see is a new data point that we have. And then when more people visit that same domain and pieces of that domain, we get more behavioral analysis to use to back up the further training of our model. So basically, the more customers we have, the better our model becomes.
Mikey, I would like you to invite me to the 500 billion party, please.
Yeah, invitations in the mail.
You have to have a gala for that one. That requires a whole,
Exactly, like
whole big.
tuxedos. It's got to be the whole
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. We got a couple of questions here that I'm going to sort of combine and just ask you to expand a little bit on. We spent quite a bit of time, and you made this very clear, the importance of that proactive and predictive analysis. And I think that's a really interesting part of what we're talking about. And especially because a lot of times I think we feel back on our heels, and this is an opportunity to get out in front of things. And so wondering if we can sort of ask you to expand a little bit more. And as you and I talked about before, there's always value in repetition. So maybe go over some of that proactive prevention that's coming out of DNS filter.
Yeah, so the whole idea about that proactivity is to put the things in place before you actually need them. Because once you need them, it's really too late. Because that means, there's been some breach event, someone's gotten through all of your defenses. And, I assume most people on this call are pretty heavy into the cybersecurity space, IT departments, network engineers. And you know that it just takes one event to get through to put your company in the news, perhaps, even bankrupt companies, people get fired. And really the proactivity is just putting layers in place that are vulnerable. And I hope that's one of the things you got from the presentation is that DNS is vulnerable. And I'll also add that it is often overlooked. There's a lot of EDR solutions that are all about the endpoint, like, fancy antivirus. But yeah, there's a lot of focus on the device itself, not as much focus on the network. So some layer of DNS protection is critical. And I would hope you would pick or at least look at DNS filter during your search.
So is DNS filter a roaming client, or are there other deployment options?
Yeah, so there's a few ways, and this is by design because there's a lot of different environments out there, network environments. There's environments where people are all in one location, and that's a perfect place to do a site-only level deployment. Or you have public Wi-Fi. We have a lot of customers, large retail customers, like with 5,000 US stores and a few others, a lot of hotels, names that you've heard of for sure that use DNS filter to just protect their public Wi-Fi from child exploitation activity, adult content. Like, you don't want people shopping around the store or wherever they happen to be and just using your, freely available Wi-Fi to do nefarious things. So DNS filters really um, available to deploy in various methods. So that's the site level, network level. There's also a roaming client that you can install on any device, even Chromebooks and mobile devices, of course, laptops, desktops, all that kind of stuff. And then we have our relay deployment, which is kind of an in-between space where you have a network, but you need a little bit more granularity. And the point of all those methods is that each one gives you different information back, sent back to home base, or maybe integrated with a SIM or your SOC system to give you DNS data. And with each deployment method, like how deeply granular the deployment is, determines how deeply granular the data is. Like, did Mikey Pruitt do something, or did someone at Mikey Pruitt's house do something? It's kind of
Hmm.
the trade-off.
Hmm. Okay. I'm curious if we can ask you, we had a couple of questions coming in around this, and I'm going to consolidate here because I think what they're getting at is looking for that standout feature. And you've given us a few that are really sticking out in my head, but I'm curious what you think is the key unique for DNS filter.
I think it really boils down to speed, and that
Hmm.
comes in a few flavors. So one thing that I didn't cover that much is that DNS filter operates the fastest DNS resolver on the planet. We do battle it out for between first and second place with Cloudflare, but I'm sure most of you on the call know what Cloudflare is. Huge, massive corporation, and us DNS filter has DNS resolution on par with the speed of Cloudflare. So your DNS resolution speeds up, and then your the categorization of domains, specifically threat domains, is super fast. So there is potential to have a patient zero. So someone sees a new domain that we've never seen, we go analyze it. They've already looked at it. Now we know about it and get the chance to analyze it. I think it's something like 35,000 domains get registered every day. So there is a
Wow.
lot of things to keep track of. This is a very, very fast moving environment, domains. So, the speed at which you can classify and get that classification like live enabled, so to speak, across our network, across all of our customer deployments is really critical because the the bad guys are using domains very rapidly. Like there's maybe a lifespan of 48 hours for a pretty malicious threat campaign. So in the first 48 hours of that campaign, most everyone is going to figure it out. We happen to be very, very early in that, sometimes even before campaigns even start, using our AI model to predict that a domain is going to turn bad. And that is a bit of a black box area. So you will have to talk to our data scientists to get a little bit deeper into that. But yeah, so
Well, it might
speed.
Yeah, that speed is the great takeaway. And, every piece of what you've said today, Mikey, is something that I feel like we could do, a whole other webinar on. There's so much here and it's really fascinating. I'm glad you got to show us in real time too, that our demo was really great. It's always so nice to see things in action. I would love to keep this conversation going, but we are going to have to start to wrap things up here. So I'm wondering if maybe what I can ask you for is I'm gonna give you a 1-2 punch question. I want to ask you for sort of a follow-up, for folks out there that are wanting to take action right away and learn a little bit more, what would you recommend? And then my second part to this is one of the ways that they can learn more right away is by opening the ebook that we've got linked in the handouts tab. If you can just give them a little reminder of what they can expect to find in that handout. So what should they be doing after they leave, and why should one of those things be opening that ebook?
Yeah, so that ebook is going to cover some of the common threats that occur via DNS, and its purpose is really to get you in the mindset of understanding that if you're not doing any protection at the DNS level, you need to. Then the next step is like which solution is best for you. Hopefully that's DNS filter, but that should be your first step. We also offer a free 2-week trial. Like you can go try it out, see how we block things. We have about a 2% false positive rate, so very low percentage of uh, things that are classified incorrectly. And kind of going back to speed real quick, the majority of the time, I think it's like 5% or less of the DNS queries that we process are actually blocked because of their unwanted content. Most of the time, somebody going to like Amazon.com or Yahoo or Google or, this webinar, like these are all allowed domains by your network admins. Most of the time, we're not blocking anything. We are just need to be a fast, very, very fast DNS resolver. And that's what we really specialize in with a security layer on top of that. But yeah, second step, get a free trial.
Perfect.
Jess, I get long-winded sometimes.
Well, in your defense, I asked you 2 questions in one, so that it required a long answer. Well, Mikey, this has been so much fun. I'm so happy I got to talk to you today, and I know the audience has loved being a part of this conversation with you. I hope that we get to have you back here again soon to explore even further, but thanks very much for being here today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
And to everyone out there who's asking some great questions, keep those coming in. I know that we didn't get to all of them, so we're going to have them all sent on over to DNS Filter, so you are going to get responses back. You will get answers to your questions, so keep those rolling in. I have to call out Alan Smith responded during my conversation of the many, many acronyms and said Robin Williams in Good Morning Vietnam used the most acronyms. Interesting. Now I feel like I need to go rewatch that movie so I know what I'm doing tonight. But first I'm going to read the wonderful ebook that's in the handouts tab. So that's your homework assignment is everybody go read that ebook and then watch Good Morning Vietnam and then send me your favorite acronyms. That's 3 homework assignments in one. You didn't know you were getting homework from this webinar, but here we are, my friends. All right. Well, I do hope that you'll all spend some time with that ebook. Please do click on the handout and please do keep those questions coming in while you're doing all of that. I have a reward for all of your diligent hard work here. I have a $250 Amazon gift card going to someone who is here live, present, and a little bit lucky at the webinar. And that special somebody is Michael Totoro from Pennsylvania. Michael Totoro from Pennsylvania. Congratulations to you, Michael. Now, as always, we will be in touch about claiming your prize after we wrap up the webinar, and stay tuned for that $50 best question gift card. I can tell you the competition was fierce today. Some great questions coming in. So nice work, all. You guys all clearly had your coffee this morning, even though it's late afternoon for some of you. You're in the late afternoon trough. It's impressive how alive, awake, alert, and enthusiastic you are. Love having all of you with us here. All right. Well, on that note, I think Alan's sending us messages to go watch Robin Williams here. I'll push that out there. All right. Well, I love it. I love it. That's a great way to wrap up a webinar. And I do want to say on that note, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, a big thank you to DNS Filter for making this webinar possible and for bringing such an entertaining team along with you. A huge thank you to Mikey for guiding us through such an interesting conversation today. To your Batman behind the scenes, you know who you are. Thank you for helping us get this wonderful webinar together today as well. And sending a big high five and a special thank you to all of you here with us today for making this whole discussion and conversation possible. It is always so much fun when we can see things sort of lighting up for all of you out there in the audience, asking great questions. I started at the top here that sometimes it can feel a bit cyclical, right? Where AI is enabling a lot of tools and prevention, but also enabling a lot of threats. And we just kind of go around and around. And webinars like this, conversations like this, are ways that we can step out of that cycle and get out in front of things. We talked a lot about proactivity today, and I think that's a key takeaway. Speed and proactivity. Those are your kind of key things to be thinking about as you go away from this conversation. I hope that you'll spend a little bit more time with DNS Filter as well. Lots to learn there. And most of all, I hope that you'll come see me again at a webinar soon. And until then, have an absolutely beautiful end to your day. Thanks all.